940, Big 550, KTRS. The board meeting is in session. Well, look, Kit Bond lobbying for the Affordable Care Act is one thing, but the fact that we wake up and Tony LaRussa doesn't want a logo on his head when he goes into the Hall of Fame, now that's a whole other issue. John Deal, lifelong Cardinal fan, what are your thoughts as you wake up and you hear that Tony LaRussa is going to go into the Hall of Fame with no logo on his hat?
Well, I think two things. One, he should go in as the Cardinals. Cardinals are just the best franchise ever. So no doubt he should.
Well, that's true.
No, go in as that. No, there's no arguing with that. But you know, on the other, I liked Bernie's article this morning. I had a chance to read that, and you know, it was a balanced approach on it. In some respects, too, it is admirable because you don't see it too much these days, where people actually remember where they came from. And I think there's no doubt he wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but for his record as a Cardinal, the World Series, the kind of turning around the franchise out of the doldrums in the mid-'90s, and just the unprecedented record of success we've had here over the past decade. But, you know, I guess it's his call. He wants to remember his roots on where he came from. That's a lot better than some of the rumors going around he's going to go in as an A or a White Sox.
Right.
That happened in the past. So.
Well, but I think, well, Jay, I'll go with you. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, I think it's probably consistent with his personality. He was never Mr. St. Louis baseball. He was never warm and fuzzy. He was always more down to business, and
he had a job to do. He came to town. He did his job.
Exactly. Yeah. And
respect the game, right?
Right, and that's not necessarily wrong.
Right.
But so he did that in a number of different places. That was his job. He's going into the Hall of Fame as a player, a coach who came in, did a fabulous job wherever he was, and he wants to be remembered for that.
Jay Duker.
I mean, you know, I sort of think it's his loss. I'm okay with the decision, but, you know, if he doesn't understand that St. Louis was the best and doesn't like us, fine. I don't want your logo on, you know, I don't want our logo on your hat.
I don't think he's saying that. That's a little harsh.
No, I don't know that it's hard. I mean, I just think, you know, I agree, but for the Cardinals, he wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
Right, we all agree with that.
Yeah, and it's the best franchise ever, and that's, like, objective, not even subjective. And so, you know,
unless you're a Yankees fan,
right? And so, if you know, if you don't think having the Cardinal logo on your hat is, you know, proud enough, then I don't want it, and that's okay. I mean, I understand. Now others are doing it. That's probably a trend.
First, it's more of a go ahead, John.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, and also I think, as Jay was saying, it's a little bit what we bought, right? I remember
we knew
early
that.
on when he wasn't quite as successful here in terms of completing the seasons and the deep runs in the playoffs as he was later in his run here. You know, the criticism always was he wasn't part of the fabric of St. Louis.
Right.
First chance he got to get on a plane and go back to Oakland. And then when he started winning at a higher level later on in his run here, that was kind of all brushed under the carpet a little bit because
we were winning.
We were right. We were winning. So it's probably I don't think it should be a surprise to anybody. But I wish it was different.
Here, I agree with you in that it's his day.
Right.
He's being inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's his one day where it's all about him. So he doesn't want the hat on, fine. I respect his opinion.
Right.
Now, with that being said, let me also say this. It's a slight to St. Louis more than White Sox and to Oakland because he was never going to wear a White Sox hat. And he was never going to wear an Oakland hat. So it's a bigger slight to St. Louis and the Cardinals because the White Sox, he's not saying I'm going to wear a White Sox hat. No. So the White Sox don't get the benefit.
Nothing are Cardinals.
Right. So the White Sox don't get the benefit of him wearing the White Sox hat.
Right.
But the Cardinals get the slight by him not wearing the Cardinal logo.
Well, you know what? Sorry, it's more of a comment on him than on us. Because the bottom line is our franchise is better, and you're right. He was never going to wear the other logos because the Cardinals is a better franchise.
So he slights St. Louis
comment
in that
on
sense,
him,
which again I don't think he's trying to do. He's trying to be respectful all the way around.
Right.
If I'm the DeWitts, I got steam coming out of my ears because the DeWitts stood by him through Glenn Beck Gate. And immigration reform in Arizona, and Ozzie Smith, and DUI.
The stoplight.
And steroids, and the steroid, and then, the steroid controversy. Through all of that. And, you know, now at the end, he says, oh, by the way, no disrespect, but I'm going to go in without anybody's hat on.
Well, that's how I sort of feel. It's like, look, you hurt our feelings. See ya. Have a good day. You know, our franchise is strong enough without our logo on your hat.
Yeah.
Have a nice day. I mean, that's how I feel.
So what happens
about it.
opening?
Well, what's interesting, when most people go in and look at that, what are they going to think of him as? They're going to think of him as a St. Louis Cardinals fan.
Right.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't
You don't
know.
know?
I don't know. I don't know. Now, what about?
McGraw, which is supporting your point, is that he was never going to go as a two, because that's not what he's recognized.
Right. Yeah. Right. But now,
Across the country, right.
what
So
happens?
Why not just finish it?
What happens opening day? Does he show up with the Clydesdales in a red jacket?
No, you dissed us.
He might take a year off. He might take a year off.
You dissed us. Bad boyfriend.
Right? I mean,
Bad boyfriend.
And how about this?
Bad breaker-upper.
Bad breaker-upper. Why didn't you just text us that we were breaking up? Nice.
And how about this? He announces it, or it comes out after the winter warm-up.
Right. After he got, you know, and I'm glad he got all the money for the kids. That's fine.
That's
But yeah,
great, right? So
right.
after the winter warm-up.
Bad boyfriend. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's really, and now going forward, how about this? Because this is really interesting to me. Kit Bond wanting to expand Obamacare, that doesn't care. I don't care about that. But this is really in my craw. What about going forward? Let's say Albert has a couple of good years in Anaheim, right? Does he go in without a Cardinal hat on? Right? Does Bruce Sutter say, hey, wait a minute, you know what? The Cubs were really good to me. Maybe take my logo off. I mean, going forward, what does this do to World Series caps?
Oh, I think it's interesting. The pitcher, the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, Greg Maddux.
He's going in logo-less.
You know, but McGraw, you bring up a really interesting point. I thought, and I haven't researched this, so maybe someone else on this show knows, but I thought that I had read that the inductee can request which one he wants. And so LaRussa has requested none.
Correct. I think that's right.
It's ultimately the Hall's decision as to what it is.
That's exactly right.
But they usually accede to the.
They have input, but ultimately, supposedly, it's the Hall of Fame's decision.
But are they
it's
really
not
going to?
necessarily a final decision yet? Although I would imagine in this case it probably is.
Right.
Does everyone understand that the Hall is a private, separate institution entity from Major League Baseball?
Right. That's another
Correct.
great point too. Now, we did a little research, and we found out that there are very few Hall of Famers who don't have a cap or logo on
It's
their
a new
cap.
thing. He's starting this new trend.
Well,
here.
there's about 7 who are old timers who no one's ever heard of, but there are 2 relatively modern players. One is Catfish Hunter, and one is Yogi Berra. Now listen to this. Frank Ladd did a little research this morning and called the Yogi Berra Institute, the Yogi Berra Hall of Fame, the Yogi Berra Fan Club, and asked, why is Yogi Berra doesn't have a logo? And they said, we have no idea. And when they said, we talked to Yogi and asked Yogi, and Yogi said, I have no idea.
Well, that's not unusual for Yogi.
Right.
I was going to say, that's probably a Yogi.
That was like an inadvertent decision. Right.
And here's the other thing. That Yogi's picture is a profile on his plaque, not a head-on. So
well, you got to see that nose.
So his hat is turned so you can't see any logo on his hat. And maybe it was because they didn't want to slight the Yankees and the Mets, or the Mets and the Yankees. But you ask Yogi Berra, he has no idea why he doesn't have a logo on his head. So we'll leave you with that.
Paperwork you filled out. Must have been some paperwork you filled out a long time.
John Deal, we're going to let you go. Thank you for coming in. Be safe, and we'll talk to you next week.
Hey, thanks, McGraw.
You got it. Jay Kanzler's here. Jane Duker. We'll come back and wrap things up. 9:50, Big 550.